And switching gears now, the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office is piecing together a shooting investigation after a man allegedly killed his wife and small child at his River Ridge home. 2 other children were also injured in that violent attack this morning. Winston Reed has more on this investigation after speaking with a neighbor who was a friend of the family.
The Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office is investigating a shooting that took place at a home in River Ridge. We're told that a man, Glenn Jr., opened fire on his family Saturday morning. The wife, identified as Dung Pham, and her small child are dead. 2 other kids, a 9-year-old girl and a 13-year-old girl, are recovering in the hospital after being shot by their father, Bone Jr., in this home at the corner of Stephen Drive and Mary Lane.
I've never seen them argue, so this is really a sad day.
It was the 13-year-old girl suffering from a gunshot wound to the ankle who called 911, telling dispatchers about the violence in her home. Here is Jefferson Parish Sheriff Joseph Lapinto.
I got to tell you, I just listened to the 911 tape, and hearing the child make that 911 call is pretty devastating right now, to be honest with you.
A.J. Reyes, a nearby resident, says he was friends with the family and interacted with Glenn Bone Jr. quite often.
The family is like a really cool family. They have a few kids, and the oldest girl plays basketball every single day, and when I see them play every day outside, they ride the bikes.
How are you feeling right now?
It's really sad because the 13-year-old and the 9-year-old, not only did they come to our house a lot, but they would stroll the baby, up and down the street.
After speaking with neighbors and investigators, we're left with more questions as to why the suspect, Glenn Bone Jr., would open fire on his family. We'll provide more information as this investigation develops. Reporting in River Ridge, Winston Reed, WWL, Louisiana.
Tonight, we have more on the deputy-involved shooting out of Charlotte County this past Friday. Deputies with the sheriff's office shot and killed a man they say was acting erratically. Now, deputies are identifying that suspect as 36-year-old Shawn Ravert. This now marks the agency's 2nd officer-involved shooting in just the last 3 days. Link News reporter Paul Dolan has the latest details.
CCSO says the call to 911 came in just before 8 o'clock last night. Sheriff Apparel says the tipster told him Ravert had been up for 7 days and was possibly on drugs. When deputies arrived at the scene, they saw Ravert waving a machete. Sheriff Apparel describes what happens next.
Despite multiple commands to put the weapon down, the man continued to move toward the deputies in an aggressive manner, ignoring orders to stop, stating, "Shoot me." The 2 deputies fired their agency-issued firearms and struck him multiple times. The deputies and EMS members attempted life-saving measures, but he succumbed to his injuries.
Earlier this morning, I spoke with Shirley Stradler, who lives just down the road from the crime scene behind me. And she tells me that Ravert was well known in the community.
He had a little dog named Savage, a little black dog, and we would play together with our dogs. Just a nice young man. I've never had any issues with him. Everybody liked him in the neighborhood. Everybody was upset about it, feel bad. They all liked Shawn. But we also have to do what keeps us safe and keeps the officers safe. They're the guys that keep us safe, so they do what they got to do, I guess.
Later, I met Annette Ramey, who also lives down the road from the active investigation. And she was just sitting in her living room when suddenly
a bunch of pop, 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 pop. I thought, was that gunshot? And then I thought, well, that must have been fireworks. And then I heard cars and stuff going on, so I came out. Neighbors here knew him. And it's just shocking because, like I said, he was a nice guy.
And the good news is no deputies were injured in this incident. Charlotte County Sheriff's Office says more information will be released when it's available, which will most likely be next week.
A man is dead after being shot by Phoenix police. It's the first fatal officer-involved shooting of this year.
This happened today in Levine near 35th Avenue and Baseline. And we begin with reports of illegal activity and an abandoned house that was involved. Fox 10's Brian Webb has been checking this all out. We checked in with him at 4. Brian, any new details?
Yes, this investigation now spans several hours and several blocks. You can still make out a large police presence back behind me. This is north of Baseline and 35th Avenue. It all began with complaints about an abandoned house just a few blocks from here and a man running down the street with a gun. Police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances, a mid-morning wake-up call for a South Phoenix neighborhood.
Yes, it's scary. So that's why I stopped and say, what's going on?
You know, just peeped out the window, and we've just been seeing a whole bunch of cop cars with the helicopter coming in.
Several streets were blocked off, nervous neighbors standing by, and officers with guns drawn moving toward the house at the middle of the block that neighbors call a constant problem: squatters, parties, and drug activity.
So yeah, usually, late night activities, you got home people on bikes and stuff roaming around. They come in and out. It's all types of different people, like 10, 20 people. They're always in front of the house making noise, drinking, smoking, whatever it is.
Several blocks away, officers caught up to a man who ran from the same house. They say he pointed a gun at an officer but did not fire. But one officer did fire his rifle, hitting the man who died at the hospital.
Anytime that an officer perceives anybody's life in danger, including his or her own, lethal force, is something that's an option at that point.
Back in the neighborhood, we saw one woman in handcuffs being placed in a police car and another one put in an ambulance. But several others were allowed back in the house. I asked one of them what happened here. He told me it was a misunderstanding. Neighbors don't quite see it that way.
People coming and going, you could tell people are probably using narcotics or something. It's off in the neighborhood.
I'm glad it happened. I was also glad because I didn't have to go to work today now. I was like, I can't go in, but I'm glad it's happening, You don't want to see your neighborhood, honestly.
Police haven't said who was killed or his connection to that house, just that they did find a handgun near the body. This will be a homicide and internal investigation, and streets in the area may be shut down for several hours. Live in South Phoenix, I'm Brian Webb, Fox 10 News.
Yeah, that's right. Police say the vest absorbed most of the impact when that officer was shot in the chest. That shooting happening in this neighborhood where you can see even now there's still a pretty active scene. We're told the SWAT team was attempting to serve an arrest warrant earlier today at a home on Ansley Drive. North Fulton SWAT officers were looking for someone who faced charges from a December incident where that man fired a gun when asked to leave a party. This suspect had an extensive and violent criminal history, according to police. While officers tried to serve the warrant, the suspect ran out of the back of the house and fired shots at officers, striking the one SWAT officer who shot back, killing the suspect. Police could not confirm if the deceased suspect is the one the initial warrant was for. We did have the opportunity to speak with a neighbor who initially called police during that December incident.
He was over at our New Year's Eve party. He kind of just invited himself up in the house and walked right on in like he owned the place. He carried a gallon Ziploc bag of weed with him, and he had a 9mm with him. And when we asked him to leave, we kicked him out. He wasn't wanting to go really willingly. Started walking down the driveway, discharged his weapon. That's when we called 911.
And I want to note the North Fulton SWAT team is made up of officers from several different departments in this area, including Roswell Police Department. Now, we are told the officer is in the hospital in stable condition after being shot in the chest. And tonight, we are still working to learn more about the suspect. Live in Roswell, Yasmina Alston, Atlanta News First.